the Reading audience I consider to be the most discerning audience in the world, and the most ruthless audience, and maybe discerning and ruthless to a level sometimes that some artists haven't appreciated. But actually, if you go down well in Reading, you've got a future. And it doesn't get any simpler than that. I mean, it really and truly, if you play a good set at Reading and the audience like you, you've got a future.
So I remember that when we got out on stage, there was a curious mix of feelings. There was part of me just thinking, as rightfully so, you just think to yourself, God, that's amazing. There's 70,000 people. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Well, sod it, I belong here, and I should be here, you know what I mean? We're damn good, and we deserve to be out in front of an audience that big. But I think, you know, for a band at that stage in our career, you need that sort of, you need that all-conquering arrogance.
Is this?
As we went on, I think they sort of opened the gates about the same time, or 5 minutes before, so all these people were rushing to try and get their good seats, probably watch the later bands that day. And so as we started playing, there was just like thousands of people just pouring in, which is much nicer than, you know, pouring out.
I remember being on, you know, in the middle of the afternoon, broad daylight, which is always a pretty strange experience for a band. People were still, you know, I guess mooching in from the campsite around 3 o'clock or whenever it was that it was on. And it was really windy, which is really strange outdoors because the sound gets blown away, and you sort of, you can have a good amount of sound from the guitar or something you need to hear, and then suddenly it's gone and then it's back.
And people say, do you prefer playing festivals to normal concerts? And yeah, I don't really mind, you know, to me a concert's a concert really, whether it's to 15 people in some weird bar somewhere or 40,000 people at Reading.
It's called Granada Land.
There is that kind of extra excitement, I suppose, that, you know, it's because you don't usually get sound check, so you kind of pushed on there, you know, 15 minutes before you start playing, you're frantically setting gear up, and then things always go wrong because your monitors are not right, or, you know, it's just kind of, it's a bit harder to control everything, all the, you know, the logistics of putting on a show, if you like. And so there is that kind of thrill, if you like, you know.
I'm going to wake all you Mission fans up now. I've seen you all dressed in black, picking your fucking noses. What we want is New Order fans.
And you set fire to your bass amp at the end of the performance.
Yeah, that's my own bleeding fault. I'd watched Jimi Hendrix live at Monterey, and I thought, that would be clever to do that, and unfortunately it was dead windy, and we lighted fuel, it's the vapour that burns, and the wind was blowing the vapour away, so it wouldn't set fire to it, so it was very embarrassing. So I swore to myself that next time I'd just throw petrol over it.
You had
Great
to
picture!
do that, yeah.
Kevin Cummins has got a great picture of that, it looks really funny, of me trying to set fire to it. I think it was kind of a symbolic thing because it was our last New Order gig, and, you know, I wanted to burn it all, but it didn't work.
It might have been, I think that was the biggest audience we played, I don't know, but I just remember Jeff, our bass player, and I were out of tune with each other, and so I kind of felt uncomfortable through the show, and I just, instead of playing, I just would throw my guitar up and down in the air.
came this close to basically mooning the audience. And I wanted to moon the audience, and I would have done it. But because I mean, it just seemed like the appropriate thing to do, like, well, you know, yeah, fuck, you know, fuck it, you know, me. But because Michael, you couldn't just freely do something like that with him, or he'd take your head off after the show. He was the reason that it dampened my gut feeling to do it. And then later, when we hit the dressing room trailer, Norman walked in and was like, "It's not my fault, it's not my fault," knowing Michael was going to scream. And then I said, "Well, I wanted to ruin the audience." And then Michael said, "But you should have, oh, you should have." And I was like, "Well, you're the reason why I didn't." So there was a lot of drama that day for Swans.
I think we might have been the first band on, the breakfast type of introduction to the day. So there wasn't a huge amount of people there to see us when we went on, but it was great to play the Reading Festival. You know, that was, you know, it's a huge thing for us.
I think we were the only band that it rained on. It was sunny for every other band, apart from when we came on stage, the heavens opened. That's one thing I do remember about that day. And then as soon as we stopped playing, the rain stopped as well. You got that fantastic photograph
big picture of
with
that,
the steam rising off the crowd, you know, because it's quite warm, but the rain kind of turning into condensation.
Got Iggy Pop sound man, and I could hear it roaring. I really could, and he was a really good guy called Tim. I could hear it roaring out, and we went down a storm. You know, the Reading crowd loved us, and it was a great gig. I remember that.
One of the guys in the band and his wife had an argument before we went on stage, and this kind of carried on into the argument. And she was like, lobbing plastic glasses at him whilst we were on stage.
Well, what are you like?
Oh yeah, and Shane had some sort of like white Tam O'Shanter affair, but I don't know where he got it from, and I really wish he hadn't got it.
And I can remember wandering around on that Reading stage. So much fun. So much fun. People would lob turf at you. And I remember watching the turf come over. And normally, any other situation, you'd be thinking, they hate me. And it was so much fun. I remember seeing it come over and going, hey! And watching it land on the floor. And thinking, it's all part of it. And it was, you know, it was all part of it.
Reading 89 was a very strange day because Tackhead with Bernard Fowler had joined the group, having previously been working with Doug Wimbish on Mick Jagger's solo gigs. So we'd previously had this heavy sound live, very loud, very sample-led. The day of the gig, we go to do the gig. Keith LeBlanc had forgotten the drum samples and trigger samples. We arrived at the gig. There's Mick Jagger, Jerry Hall, all coming to say hello to Doug and Bernard, and backstage. And the boys went on stage and decided to do a rock gig. Started playing Jimi Hendrix tunes because we had no samples. I'm out front. I can barely hear the PA compared to what we normally had. It was like. So to be honest with you, I remember that day like it was yesterday. Not because it was a great day, but because it was an absolute everything I didn't want this to be sounding like.
I didn't have any time to relax. I think we just arrived literally about half an hour before we were meant to go on. It was just chaos for me. I really absolutely hated it. I remember being so nervous that our tour manager literally had to push me on stage.
I think I felt a lot of pressure building up to it because I had very little confidence at the time, not necessarily as a person, as a musician getting on stage, but just talking to you face to face now. I had really low confidence, and so to get on stage, you know, and play at Reading was quite a big hurdle.
I mean, say walking out in 1989 on the stage at Reading, you know, you walked up the stairs and you walked out and the roar goes up, then you have your realisation. yeah, this is good, this is what I expected, you know, this is what I want. But a hell of a lot of it was tainted by being tired, working very hard.
No time for smoking, no time for drinking. Drinking is another time, but when it comes to work, you work.
For me, it was more to sing the cherish to be on stage, to be on stage, to the life on the road was touring. Studio, c'est also good. It's good, but it's another work. You're more on yourself. You know, you're more on yourself, on your trip. You know, you're blah blah. You go down in music, but on stage you communicate. Quoi. You're doing it. You have the people in front of you, and if you make them happy, it gives back to you an energy. And after you can go to bed. Yeah. Everybody excited. C'est terrible. Moi je trouve que c'est ça the main thing for me, to be on the main stage.
Yeah, no, the travel thing is great. I mean, you know, I always, joke with people that I'm professionally self-unemployed, and to get to travel around the world, meet really nice people, get shown around the world by really nice people, and feel that you're connecting with people. I don't know, that could be much better, really. I get paid for doing that,
You tend to suspend a little bit of belief, really, because your manager will ring up and say, we've got the Arsenio Hall show, and or then we've got Letterman, or then we've got Conan O'Brien, and you'll be flying out in a week's time, and you'll do those 2 TV shows. We'll do some promo in Mexico, and then you'll be home in 10 days. And somebody would say, your passport and a car will be outside the door tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, and tell your family you'll see them in a month, and they'd ring you up and say stuff like that. Your entire life would be sort of completely, it's taken away from you a little bit, but then that's part of the fun, isn't it? Part of the fun is just sort of going to roller coaster rides. You sit there and go, whoa! So you don't have any regrets about it. It's great.
And surely, according to the times which we were playing as well, it was exhausting because we started something like 4. When people are closing jobs, the owner would want us to start playing so that people will just come from the jobs and come to have pints in the pub. From 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And 1 day off a week.
The first thing we did in the States was in Long Island, in some community college in Long Island, and we were like playing in what seemed like a corridor, and students were going on their way to the canteen, back and forth, and it was really disappointing. I was like, fuck, is this, America's going to be like this, I was like, I was gutted.
You don't get to tour America on a bus, you don't get to play with Iggy Pop and meet him. You don't get to support the Ramones at Brixton Academy and meet them afterwards backstage in their dressing room, talk to them. You won't now, they're dead. Well, Iggy's not, but the Ramones basically are. Joey and Johnny are gone anyway. God rest their souls. Yeah, I mean, those are really important things to me. That's the kind of thing I'll be telling my grandchildren.
Originally, I was playing in bands, and it was basically cover bands. We do Wilson Pickett, we do James Brown, we do Otis Redding. At that time, there was a healthy audience for live entertainment. But then in the late 60s, early 70s, the whole economy changed. Everything changed in terms of music, and in order to actually appear before people, you had to have some type of product to actually market and promote the act that was coming in order to get a reasonable figure. So basically it just turned me on my head, which is kind of how we ended up doing Sugar Hill and doing other things, because we had to actively try to record to have a reason to actually do a gig. So it flipped, if you know what I mean. All of a sudden I had to learn a whole new job.
Moi, I can remember the first time, the recording of Mla, the first album. We found ourselves in the Studio Davout. It was beautiful, the best studio in Paris. The atmosphere when we were recording, it was every day we were happy to go back to the studio, you know, permanent excitation. First time he put a headphone on her head. We were not used to play with headphone. And the sound, just the way of to listen to the other speaking in the headphone, we were more than you know.
The conditions in the studio made you feel kind of self-conscious. I remember, like, sometimes you just be doing the part by yourself, you know, and it's like, that's no fun, you know. You really, like, you feel everybody's in the control room, you know. You're out there with a set of headphones, so you can't. Sometimes they be talking and you can't hear what they're saying. You're just like, what are they saying? You know, don't they like a part? You know, don't they like a sound? What can I do? You know, you just get really kind of a bit paranoid as well.
I don't know. I hear a kind of symphony going on in my head the whole bloody time. And getting that on tape is a bit of an imperfect science. And you can do it again and again and again and again. That's always a problem. The thing about gigs is they're done. You go up on stage and they're done.
You know, once it's finished, I mean, when you've been working on something, certainly with the band, with the band ethos of in a studio, and you spend a lot of time recording it, mixing it. By the time that you would, back in the old day when you would have got a test pressing or something, you were just sick to death of it. I mean, you just didn't want to hear it anymore, personally. I mean, it was just like, already, you know, I would have been thinking about what was coming next.
Well, the songs were written with Martin. I think Martin gave them a depth, and he had a mature way of looking at the music. He painted an interesting picture around the central core of the song, whereas Bernard and I in particular, Steve was very, very quiet and would have just gone for the central core, and it wouldn't have lasted. So I mean, I think he gave it a lasting thing by making it more mature and overlaying a lot of things so that you could listen to it. It enabled you to listen to the music over and over again, whereas if Bernard and I had done it the way we wanted it, I think it just, you know, would have been a bit more immediate maybe, but not lasting.
And it may be harder than ever to make a relevant rock record, but I still think that if you're having fun and people feel that, then it's always going to be relevant.
I continue to appreciate human error, human quality of the voice. I want to hear mistakes. I want to hear the throat. I want to hear sounds. I want to hear distortion. I want to hear accidents. I want to hear an organic process. If you take that away, it's a flawless, sterile machine. This is why I don't like a lot of this really ultra-glossy music, because I don't hear it. All I hear is the flat compression of the machine of it.
C'est deux univers différents. Je veux dire, la musique s'exprime par poser de la musique sur des enregistrements pour communiquer à plein de gens. Et puis c'est nécessaire de jouer, de vivre la musique direct. On joue la musique, on vit un moment, c'est sorti du temps, c'est intense, on oublie tout. Tandis que l'enregistrement d'un album, c'est un truc un peu intellectualisé. On part dans le son. C'est un stage de son, tu vois, le stage intensif, là, tu vois. Tu rentres là-dedans, tu rentres dans un délire. Ça s'arrête là, quoi. Par contre, le concert, c'est la vie.
It's very similar to what you said.
C'est le sentiment. Le concert, c'est le sentiment. Et l'album, c'est un peu l'intellectuel, la musique, le spirit. Dans le son, le voyage dans le son. Et l'autre, c'est nécessaire, les deux.
Yes,
live is very consuming, and as Bernard says, even though he hates it as much as he does, he always says it's like having a railroad train up your arse playing live, and it's very difficult. You can't really think about anything else other than what you're doing. I mean, when you walk out on stage at Reading, if you're thinking about what you're going to have for your tea tomorrow, then you're in the wrong game, really, aren't you?
But to me, the best thing, to my heart and mind, is seeing somebody playing live right in your face, and you can feel the energy of what they're doing, and you can see what they're going for, and you can actually have an experience that's a one-off. You know, that's a one-off. That you can't see this tomorrow. The only time you can see it is now. It's here and it's now. And still, that's my favorite part of the music business, is live.
You can't beat that moment 5 minutes before you're going to go on a stage. You can hear the audience, whoa, 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 and the whole place is going like that. You can't beat that. I'm still coming down from it now.
I love the stage, and you know, I feel very at home, comfortable. I've never had stage fright. Anderson used to throw up before gigs. Not that uncommon with people. Everyone went out in front of 100,000 Africans in the middle. Live TV all over Africa. Get me out of there.
In the early days, I was so terrified of performing that the gig would almost be over. No, I wasn't drunk or anything. The gig would almost be over before I, you know. And then I started relaxing, and then I started making up stories about songs, and I heard this song there, I did this song there. And then I started getting really into it.
Every gig was like so important. Sometimes we were told, you know, by whoever was managing us at the time, or, you know, maybe by Guy, oh, this is a really important one, guys, because, you know, XYZ are coming to see you, and it always felt like there was a lot of that.
When you're in a band, I suppose you kind of like collect gigs and like people you want to meet. Like you want to meet your heroes, and you want to play Glastonbury, you want to play Reading, and all the major festivals at the time that are going around. You want to do them. Like if you start as a local band, you want to play at all the little local venues. Think I played there and I've achieved that goals. Then you get a bit bigger. You want to play the bigger venues, and you want to play the festival. So yeah, it was quite important to collect the set.
Our first trip to California, we went to San Francisco. We thought we had a show up there. So we get in our van, and the van breaks down on the Oakland Bridge, you know, the Bay Bridge, whatever they call that. Mm-hmm. And we barely made it over the top. The engine died, and I was like, oh my God, we got to make it to the top, you know, or we're going to be stuck up here and we'll die. And the thing made it over the hump, and we like coasted down, you know, and the van's just coasting. Then it's like first exit, you know, get off the first exit, and the van comes rolling to a stop in front of this building called the Tool and Die. And it was a punk rock show going on there. And so we started loading our equipment in, and they're like, who are you, you know? And we were like, we're the Butthole Surfers. And you're not scheduled to play here. And we started crying, you know. And they let us play 3 songs, you know. And then Jello Biafra was there that night, and the Dead Kennedys ended up playing. And Jello liked us, so he signed us to Alternative Tentacles. So that was how we got our first record deal.
I'm always striving for that. To make every gig like the best gig that's ever been. To make people walk out going, fucking wow, you know?
Something quite spectacular happens when 4 or 5 musicians lock in together on the stage and connect with an audience. It's like a unifying. It's like unifying people.
I've rarely played with a band that will play better when there isn't an audience in front of them. And some audiences in some places realise it a lot more than others, but the more feedback that you give to an audience, that an audience gives back to you, and you receiving that improves what you're doing, which it does, and you sort of get into a feedback cycle where, you know, everyone's really enjoying it, and it's just helping each other's experience of it, you know. And there's other audiences who'll just, you know, you might really be enjoying it, and at the end of the show will go crazy, but all the way through the show will act like, you know, it really isn't affecting them. And those audiences get shit shows usually, because the band are like, what the fuck's going on, you know, what are we doing here?
It's very boring, like if you go to some of these small theaters and they put chairs from down there, and there's no space for people to dance. Then you'll be wondering, what are they going to watch anyway? We are just on the floor for people on stage. What's so amusing on us? If they don't dance, then it's going to be a boring show.
You might drive through the day and arrive at a small venue in Philadelphia, living down there. And then just when you think there is genuinely now, there are 8 people would arrive there to play for them. And they were hard gigs. Even more dispiriting about them might be that they might be brilliant gigs. And afterwards you think, great, we just played like a 2-hour set and 8 people, you know? So it's kind of...
You know, I played to no people once. And I played to 130,000 at Glastonbury. You know, from there to there. And even playing to no people was pretty good.
I think in the early days I used to get nervous about, I used to sort of think, oh God, it's a really big crowd, you know, we've got to be good or something. I've lost that over the years, that sort of, every night I go out I feel very comfortable on stage, and it doesn't really matter to me whether it's a little club like last night in Aberdeen, we played a pretty small place, or last summer we did, for the second time we did, there's a big festival in Karlsruhe, which is my favourite place to play because it's like, I've never played Milton Keynes Bowl, but it's a kind of natural amphitheatre, and when you walk out there's a kind of hill in front of you, and it is just people, it's 100,000 people, and wherever you look there's just people, and it is very exciting to walk out in front of them.
People say, do you prefer playing festivals to normal concerts? And yeah, I don't really mind. You know, to me, a concert's a concert, really, whether it's to 15 people in some weird bar somewhere or 40,000 people at Reading and stuff.
Your emotions sort of went up and down. I don't actually remember being that nervous about the bigger gigs. I think sometimes it's the smaller ones when there's no one there. You know, when you've got a big audience, you're halfway there already.
But for me, playing big crowds is less difficult than playing a bar. Playing a bar, playing where people they don't pay to see you, where you're not supposed to play and take their attention. That's the hard stuff.
I used to feel like I needed to try really hard and just really struggle with it, you know, and try and sweat and just freak out. And now it seems like I don't have to try anymore. It just seems like it's just there.
Well, I like playing live, you know, and if I have a good band, like I do right now, a group of guys that are light on their feet, and I can duck and jive with the rhythm section. I mean, I don't think there's anything better. It's like sex, you know, and it's always different, and I just love it, you know.
You know, you do a tour, for instance, or sometimes it can be quite a long day or a long trip, and you're feeling quite weary, and you think, oh, we've got to go on stage now. Oh my God, you know, how am I going to summon up the kind of energy to do this? And the minute you walk on there, and the adrenaline goes, and you know, suddenly you're on top of the world.
I still think it's romantic to eat shit food at 3 o'clock in the morning on some roadhouse on the side of a road in Poland. I think it's romantic. I still think it's romantic. I've been doing it for 27 years, and the romance of that's never left me. I've probably got a screw missing or something, but I still like it. I love the 22 hours a day doing nothing.
When you're touring, you're thinking to be you thinking, dang, when I'm going back, when I will be back home, I will be in front of my TV with my plate on my knee and doing nothing. And when you're doing nothing at home, you're thinking, well, we'll go back to touring. Touring is excitement every day. It's really the meaning of a musician life. You forget about the newspaper, you forget about everything. Just focus on your stuff and the audience every night. It's the best thing you have to do on the musician.
She drinks upstairs at Harry's bar. Says, don't know how I came this far. She says I know I've had some.
And just the experience of traveling so much and spending so much time out of the country, it just changes you. You're completely an adult at the end of the. There was still slightly. I'm sure when we played weddings, some of us would have been living with our parents. There was none of that at the end of touring. You weren't seeing your parents anymore.
Sometimes, being a sort of a touring musician, first time round, it's almost like it's kind of like you're. It's almost like an extended adolescence. You don't have to take on that many You don't have to take on responsibility. You can just, you can be a brat sort of thing, and people let you get away with it, and which other people who normally wouldn't stand for it,
People that don't know have this idea of touring as being very glamorous, and you're jetting off to here and there, and all seems very glamorous. But the reality is that it is hard work, and you don't actually get to, unless you make a real effort, you don't actually get to see very much of where you are. I've always enjoyed touring. As I said before, I enjoy the camaraderie. You get on the road and with the band and the crew. And when you have a good show, it's the best things in the world.
That everybody still thinks it's sex, drugs and rock and roll, but I mean touring is really hard. Maybe we were never big enough for it. It was just completely sex, drugs and rock and roll, and roadies do the sound check for you. I mean, for us it was hard work, so and we toured constantly, to the point where that was part of the problem, where Luke began to disintegrate, because we just never had any time off. I imagine it's only the really big bands that can say sex, drugs and rock and roll, because there's a lot of the kind of the menial jobs that they stop doing because roadies can do it for them or whatever, and you hear a lot of certain people just turning up 2 minutes before the show. They just walk on stage with a guitar and they start. They haven't had to go through all the the shit of sound checking and just sitting around staring at your shoes, smoking 60 Marlboros or whatever, just out of sheer boredom.
England 1936, the grip of Sabbath day. In London town, the only sound is the whispering alleyway.
It's also an incredible test of people's friendship to go through being in a band, to travel the way you do and be in such close contact all the time. Really tests your friendship and so on, and to get through that, is a big thing. And if you can get through it, it's probably going to be okay for a long time. Maybe we should do it to marriages.
Yeah, we should. Go on the road.
Yeah.
Ouais. Ah ouais. Top. Tu vois, la valise, suitcase, 10 minutes. Une tournée de 2 mois, 5 minutes pour faire la valise. Direct. Mais maintenant, on a des enfants, c'est difficile, mais le touring, c'est le top. En Angleterre, en plus, super.
things that happened, you know, on a daily basis. You just couldn't invent. The bus going on fire, the bus losing a wheel, the bus being replaced by a van, the back of which was full of battery acid. We didn't realise that. We all sat in it.
One of the first gigs we did tours we did was with Primal Scream. I remember one gig in York. Primal Scream didn't like leaving their equipment in their van, because obviously if it gets nicked, it's the end of the world. When you're a small band like that, you can't replace the stuff. So they'd take it into this these people that were putting us up in this like nice flat in York, and of course we were sitting there, and all of a sudden we decided, well, why don't we do a gig? You know, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning in this block of flats, not like a nice flat in York as well. And all of a sudden, us and Primal Scream started playing Pretty Vacant in this guy's house. Guy had the drums out and everything. The police came, and that was, you know, it was good memories.
I was a huge Fall fan. I mean, we were all big Fall fanatics. We listened to them a lot. We got to play with them in Hamburg one time at some kind of 2-day festival at a giant theater, and I think the Swans were there, and the Fall was there, and a few other bands. And I remember like Blixa backstage with a switchblade snorting speed off the switchblade, and at the end of the first night, the like crowd had rioted, and the fire trucks came out, and the crowd set the fire trucks on fire, and 50 people went to jail, into the hospital, and we got the hell out of there. We didn't stick around for day 2. I was like, that was too much. It's the first place that was too much for us.
And just before the show, the guy, a road manager, came down to the dressing room saying, "Wow, Madonna is there! Putain, it was so exciting." And we want to talk to him. He said, "Where is she? She's on your right." So we went back on stage, and all the band have played in front of the direction of Madonna. Hey, Madonna! Madonna, trop belle.
Met Ramones, who toured with the Ramones. Met got to meet them, they were good. And Jilla Biafra. In fact, I had Jilla Biafra and Joe Ramone in the dressing room in New York, one either end. And I think about which one should I go and talk to? Oh, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And then have the tour manager saying, "You guys have got to get out." I say, no, you can't kick these guys out. It's like, it's Joe Ramone and it's Jilla Biafra. It's like, oh, don't kick them out.
We spent a week in Moscow for a half-hour gig that we mimed. That was a strange thing. But a few good stories from Moscow. We stayed in the Hotel Ukraine, which is one of those huge Stalinist buildings in Moscow. There's about 5 or 6 of them, and they're very well known. Basically, the whole of this hotel was full of rock bands from all over the Russian Empire, the USSR as it was then, and a few chosen Western bands that had been asked to come over to represent through the British Council and the British government, and we were one of them. And there was just amazing parties going on all over, every night. Champagne was cheap. It was from the Ukraine, but it was cheap. Vodka was even cheaper. I remember there was just security people everywhere in uniform going around with cameras filming us. It was a very strange situation. There was rumours that all the rooms were bugged. But it was the wildest debauch I've ever been on in this kind of communist clampdown area. And I remember as well, my whole bedroom went out one window one night after a serious drinking session. I mean, everything. I slept on the floor in the end because there was nothing left in the room. Everything had been thrown out. The Russians went mad, but hard currency cost about 20 quid. That was it, you know. The manager stood and talked and everybody was happy again.
And so Run DMC's management wanted a white band to play with Run DMC and Public Enemy when they played in Britain and Europe for the very same reason. But it didn't go down too well.
What are your memories of those shows then?
Absolutely being petrified. The first 2 nights were both at Brixton Academy, and the best memory was Rich getting hit on the leg by a firework that went off on his leg, and then the rest of the set he played actually behind his Ampeg bass rig, which was up here. You could just see his head poking out from the back. That was funny. And the worst moment was because Clint and Gray, even though I'm sure they were scared shitless, they don't really care. So they were running about giving it as, but there was like people that obviously brought newspapers in. I don't know why you bring a newspaper to a gig, but scrumple it up and set fire to it, so they're like newspapers. Someone must have had a bag of mint imperials, because there's a load of mint imperials. There's umbrellas thrown at us, loads of coins. Our roadies made quite a lot of money that night.
Yeah, little tour. Did a little tour in '87, which is basically the East Coast, Chicago and New York and Boston, then over to like LA and either one over there, was it San Francisco? That was a little tour, but the major tour we did was about '89. We went over there for 3 months and just went everywhere, all the East Coast, all around, Higgledy Piggledy, all over, all the interesting bits, until we went totally mad, took too many drugs and came back home and pretty much split up.
I think 3 weeks is an optimum length for a tour, to be honest. Because the first week you spent just getting into it, and then the second, third week you kind of got the songs, you got your confidence, and that's it. After that, I think it's easy to become a little numb, even complacent.
Sitting on a tour bus and watching the world go by, when you're on your first few tours, you don't actually notice the world go by. You just sit there in the bus having an amazing time and getting loaded.
And I try and tell my kids this. They want to be in a band. I say, well, you're going to have to exist on 4 hours sleep, 2 bottles of vodka a night, as many this and that as you can take, just to keep going, and stay sane at the same time. But having said that, yeah, fantastic.
It's kind of weird, really. It's like I wasn't really expecting to become part of the music scene, but it was like a magic carpet ride, really. So it's kind of like floating along in this kind of little world of my own, most of the time off my head. Because it was the 80s, everyone took lots of drugs in the 80s and the 90s, and probably still now. But and it kind of like floated through this little world of like being like, oh, what's going on here? Like signed to a record label. Kind of like coasted through it, thinking like, this is weird.
Those early stages of being in a band, when you're excited about getting a record contract and putting your first single out and doing a gig and doing your first big gig and all the rest of it, a lot of that enthusiasm does naturally evaporate.
I mean, I think you change as people. And you definitely have to say that while there's an excitement about it, you're always chasing, the first times or whatever. Also, once you get involved in drinking drugs, it can change your perception of the whole thing. I mean, every group unfortunately has that phase. Is there any that haven't had that phase? I'd be delighted to hear from you.
I've had a lot of addictions in my life, and as far as that goes, I think music has really been the healthiest one.
The more outrageous I was, the more everyone liked it. Shane MacGowan was similar. I've been to the Pogues gigs and people just wanted him to fall down and be drunk. And, jeez, he was fucking brilliant, he was fucking locked, that kind of stuff.
And there was always a certain, I noticed like at Pope's gigs there would be a certain voyeuristic element. People just just waiting for him to fall flat on his face, either literally or metaphorically.
I mean, I was drinking a lot, taking a lot of drugs, so all my energies were going into doing all that sort of stuff. And I was always like, yeah, okay, it's great being in a band, but let's get out of our head here as well.
Well, I think, I was pretty strung out 20 years ago, and I was probably thinking, let's get through this gig and get paid, we can get high and go back to the hotel, and time went on. So, even if that wasn't the case, I was probably thinking about it.
I think 20 years ago we were quite driven by enjoying ourselves excessively. That's changed, isn't it?
You know, I think I went to one party at the My Bloody Valentine's house, and one party that Bobby Gillespie had, probably in the whole of the period that I was in House of Love, you know.
And I think it backfired on us as well, because people perceived us as these ultra serious people, you know, who were just talking about politics all the time. I mean, come on, for God's sake, you know. I mean, all you need to do is maybe talk to people who worked on the road crew or whatever. I mean, it was not like that at all. We were just like, it was just party central most of the time. It's a complete reverse of what people think.
I sometimes have a look on YouTube at some stuff. There's some funny stuff on there, which sort of takes me back. The best one, actually, if anyone ever wants to see, is the one in Ireland. We did an Irish TV thing.
They call themselves Pop Will Eat Itself. Let's have a welcome for them. Pop Will Eat Itself. Yes, boys, go.
We flew from Birmingham about 6 in the morning. We started drinking, didn't we, at the airport, and then when we got to Ireland, we went in the pub, and then we were only miming as well, so there was no pressure on it. It was like the Terry Wogan show. It was a Gay Byrne show, actually. There's all these old grannies with their handbags on there. We're thinking, we've got to go out and fight this, oh God. So we decided to just stick loads of sellotape around our face and make us as grotesque as possible. And Clint started smashing up the hired equipment, but it's really quite amusing, that.
We've got an incredibly loyal following who have been following us, most of them from the beginning or throughout, you know, for 20 years, and now they're bringing their children along who are 20 years old and that kind of thing. And they're sort of stuck with us, and it is like a kind of massive sort of family in a way, and that sort of drives us in a way, doesn't it? You know.
Yeah, definitely. Making contact with all the people that we know people everywhere now, you know, and. It's we're just the focal point for a big get-together, really. We just provide the apex of the evening, that's all.
You know, they got to the point where I couldn't stand it. Like, nobody wants to hear this. I don't want to hear it. It just, and I don't know, you know, it still amazes me that anybody would want to hear it. I can't believe that, you know, there's a crowd out there listening to that stuff. I mean, those songs aren't very good. And we're not very good. But it's just great because somebody wants to listen to it. So I think, you know, if you're a musician and you just make something, there's going to be somebody that wants to hear it.
You know, I've always been very clear, you know, I'm not doing this just for myself, you know. I'm not going to say, oh, I don't care what anyone else thinks about it, I like it, and that's all that matters. Yeah, I mean, I do it because I like it, and that's part of what matters, but having other people like it and connecting with other people was always what the band was about, whether it was Spectrum or Spacemen 3. And right from the start of Spacemen 3, we felt that the songs that we were writing weren't just for us, they were for other people. We didn't really know who these people were, but we hoped that they were out there. That was kind of our big wager, that there would be an audience out there for it.
There was a part of me that was quite bloody-minded about it. It's like, this is it. You either like it or you can fuck off, you know. So they fucked off.
The best bands are the ones that are honest. You can see it in the way a vocalist delivers their vocal or their lyric. You know, one of the most amazing gigs I ever saw was Captain Beefheart at a venue in Victoria years ago. I think I took about 50 mushrooms, and when it stood down the front and his microphone stand was here and I stood there, and you can't tell me that guy, when he was singing, what he was doing he didn't think about anything else. You know, this was it. And I think that's honesty and integrity, and There's too many bands around now where the minute they open their mouth, you can tell they don't give a shit.
In that respect, I mean, I've probably calmed down a little bit, that I don't really get annoyed with the fact that very popular music is always shit, and I wish that would change. Well, now I've learned that's not going to change. It's the vast majority of the public are absolutely cloth-eared, and it's shit they respond to and always will, you know.
It's a hard judgment, but there is not a lot of integrity going on, and that has partly to do with the media. How, let's say, how pop musicians try to play up to the role of being famous, better than other people, and in a league of their own, when they are basically always normal people.
The one thing I remember taking from both jazz and gospel was the search for honesty, especially in gospel, because gospel differs from secular records in the sense that if a secular artist is sitting there telling you a story, how do you know if he means anything about what he's saying? Whereas if you pick up a record by Sister Rosetta Tharpe and she's telling you the reason why she's so happy is because she loves Jesus, you know that she's 100% behind that lyric, completely behind that lyric. And I find that honesty really, really disarming. I mean, I didn't believe a word of it. I was still fairly deeply agnostic, didn't really believe a word of it, but the one thing I remember is thinking, well, what I want from music in the future is to find people who act like that, who record with that same sense of directness and honesty.
Well, to me, that's everything. And that's the only thing that's important. However, is a choreographed showbiz show like Madonna does lacking integrity? You know what I mean? It's just a different kind of integrity. You're seeing her hours and hours of rehearsing her dance and her discipline with her diet and her lifting weights and all this big arsenal of performers. You know, some people might say that isn't. However, me personally, I'd rather see a sweaty Bessie Smith on a stage shaking it than a glossy show. That's just me.
I mean, I think I respond to honesty as a listener. But, you know, I wouldn't underestimate the value of a good hustler either. I don't mind being hustled a little bit either. In fact, I kind of admire that too. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about not selling out or not being honest. I mean, hey, you know, people are going to react to what you're doing or they're not going to react. They'll probably react more if you're keeping it reals.
People, you know, sometimes have to make compromises because life forces you into positions where that's what you have to do. You can't always do everything according to the rules of the book that you've written. You know what I mean? Because the world is actually runs on another set of rules that somebody else wrote.
I think art, culture, is something that we shouldn't expect to make a living out of. It's something we should do because we want to do it. Because that's just you're just turning into another cog in the capitalist machine by saying, well, the reason I'm doing this is to make money. That's not a good reason to be any sort of creative.
I know some people who've done some pretty dishonest things in music and in their lives, and I wonder how they live with themselves and how they sleep at night, really, because I couldn't. If I thought that I was ripping someone off or taking credit that someone else should have had or something, I wouldn't feel good about it. It's nothing that I need, you know.
People can be bought quite easily, you know, if somebody is seen as quite edgy, then, you know, some ad agency will give them, you know, $100,000 or whatever and take their music, and then, do you know what I mean, it's not so edgy after that, you know.
We grew up without money. No one is born with money in his pocket. But, you know, we were very proud of ourselves and we were very proud of our music, and we always wanted to give the best to the people, to the audience who comes to our music, and forget about our differences as individuals. we had our differences individually, but it's not a thing which you can show on stage.
To tell you the truth, you will earn more money by being dishonest and having no integrity. But at the end of the day, if you want to go back to a person and have that same smile as you had the first time around, there has to be some honesty, some integrity, some loyalty, and all these other things that make it a bit more difficult on the short term, but makes it much more enjoyable on the long term.
So sometimes people they tell me, Steph, it's sounding bizarre to you. It's that you're playing today a small place, and I say the same answer. No, I'm happy. I'm playing, and I feel good in my head. When I'm playing, I'm happy. For it's a therapy for me. You know, musician needs to play.
If I don't do anything creatively, music-wise, it's like it builds up, and I get really kind of. If I don't have an outlet, then I'll become quite difficult to be with. Really,
you have to have an outlet to do something creatively, musically. It's just in your blood. I don't know. I just can't explain it. I'm same as Raymond. I think I'd crack up if I didn't do, not necessarily write songs, but play with somebody. Play guitar at least. It's just there. You have to do it.
I mean, people say, do you enjoy it? And I'm not even sure it's enjoyment, really. I think it's more like this kind of love-hate relationship I've got with it, where I do feel compelled to do it, and I'm obsessed with it.
I think you just got to do it. You've either got it or you haven't, that feeling. I mean, I'm sure there are people that feel they want to do a bit of music, but they don't have that passion. For me, it was always a one-way street.
If there's a guitar in the room, I'll pick it up and start playing it, and music comes out, and I start writing songs. So it is a compulsion in there to create. I think actually it's one of the most important things of being a human being, is to be creative. As we move through life, if there is a meaning to life, certainly for me, it's to create something new that's worthwhile.
I would say to me, it's that literally, as melodramatic as it sounds, some people can't do anything else. They have, I don't know if it's the mental attitude, proclivity, emotional plane, or what it is, but they're doing what they want to do. I mean, I'm a performer. I'm a painfully introverted, shy kind of person. I'm not a party girl. I never go to parties. If I go, I'm in the corner, and then I go. I'm not I feel self-conscious in groups. I don't like groups of people. I'm very, very introverted. So the only time I can project myself is through this work. But other than that, I'm a loner and really kind of isolated. Almost a hermit in a way.
This is what I do, and very much, okay, where's the next band? I need this kind of like lifeblood. Where's the next project?
I don't know really. It's the only thing I've ever known. So I don't. Like I say, I mean, a lot of the time I spend all my time going, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm sick of it. It's too much work. It's too much stress. And, all that lot. And then somebody says to me, "Oh, it's XFM. Do you want to do a 30-minute mix?" Like, "Oh yeah, of course I do. Yeah, right. Yeah, how much am I getting? Nothing. Fine, I'll do it. And then I'm sat there for days doing this 30-minute mix. So, as my wife says, God bless her, it's just in you.
I'm doing this because I'm being honest. I'm being me. I'm being myself. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that eventually you get over all those insecurities that you have when you're a kid, and all the fear of how you're going to be judged. I don't have any of that anymore. And that's great. That only comes with time.
I go on stage and try to tear myself open, and I try to tell you a story. You might get the story, you might not get the story. It's the same thing with Sugar Cubes, all the bands. I'm always trying to tell you a story.
C'est une aventure extraordinaire, très dure à vivre parce qu'on a beaucoup joué, on a eu beaucoup de pression sur le groupe, il y a eu des luttes internes,
Mais lorsque la lumière s'éclairait, c'était la bombe. C'était énorme, c'était une aventure de vie.